Hi, I'm Pam Cheek, and I'm a travel agent with over 20 years of experience in the travel industry. I'm super excited because Princess Cruise Lines has just released their 2026 Alaska cruises and cruise tours to anyone who has sailed on Princess before, and starting on August 1, they will also be available to the general public who have not cruised on Princess before. So I'm here to tell you a little bit about Alaska 2026, Pam's best suggestions and choices. Let's start with when to go. The best time to go to Alaska on a cruise tour depends on what you're looking for. The season runs from May until mid-September, and there are differences throughout that season. In general, the weather is going to be less rainy in May and more rainy in September, and it just continues throughout the season. However, Alaska has the most fickle weather in the world, and on any given day you may have rain and you may not have rain. Did you know you're going into a rainforest? Ketchikan gets an incredible amount of rain every year, and so if you miss it, you had a really good day. The bottom line is go prepared for rain, go prepared for cold weather in front of the glaciers, go prepared for potentially some warm weather, especially if you're going to the interior of Alaska, where in the summer they're going to have sunshine pretty much all day long. Weather is one of those things that you can't predict ever in Alaska. So how do I choose? Well, what is it that you want to experience? Experiences change throughout the season. May is beautiful for cruising with snow-capped mountains and some ice floating in the water, and I love May in Alaska for a cruise. But if you're wanting to go on a cruise tour, Denali Park does not generally open till the second week in June because the roads can still be closed from snow. So you want to time your cruise according to what it is you want to experience. If you're looking to go dog sledding, for instance, on a glacier, you need to go before middle August because a lot of times in Alaska, because of all the sun, the ice fields get mushy and they need to pull the dogs off for their safety. So if you go in late August or early September, it's possible that dog sledding on the glacier is not going to be happening. If you're looking for wildlife, the best time for wildlife are when the salmon is running. The predators all come to the prey. And so when it comes to bears and whales, you want to be there for the best chances when the salmon are running. That would be from mid-June until mid-August. And it can certainly happen at any other time. I've seen bear in May when they're first coming out of hibernation and looking for food. But please remember, wildlife are wildlife. They show up when they want to show up. And I've been on many trips to Alaska where I did not see any bears the entire time I was there. So make the wildlife the icing on the cake, not the cake itself. I can guarantee beautiful mountains, incredible forests, huge rock-faced cliffs with glaciers on the top. I can guarantee beautiful oceans, and just the majesty of Alaska is beautiful. But I can't guarantee wildlife. So you can up your chances by choosing times when they are more likely to be available, but please don't stake your trip on seeing wildlife. The same is true with the potential for seeing the Northern Lights. Lots of people are like, will I see the Northern Lights? I don't know. Some people do. The best chance of Northern Lights is on a cruise tour where you go as far north as possible, which in this case would be Fairbanks, and when it's as dark as possible, which would be September. Now, will that guarantee you seeing them? No, it will not. Is it possible you would see them at another time? Of course. This year, there's been some crazy whatever goes on in the solar system where they have seen the Northern Lights way down into the U.S. in very strange times. So again, don't stake your trip on Northern Lights. Look at the things that are most important to you. Focus on those things, and if you get the icing on the cake, you are having a really great and amazing trip. Let's talk about how long you should go. Most of the cruises to Alaska are 7 days or 8 days and 7 nights, however you want to say it. They usually go from a Saturday to a Saturday or a Sunday to a Sunday. Some go Wednesday to Wednesday, depending on your route and which ship. And that's pretty typical. There are some different cruises, like out of San Francisco, that are 10 days. And there's also some really cool cruises that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes that are kind of one-shot cruises, but are very special and more days. Now, if you're planning to go to the interior of Alaska on a cruise tour, I'll be talking about that a lot more later. But the important thing to know about that is the longer you can spend, the more you're going to get enjoyment out of it. There are so many options for cruise tours, and I'm not going to talk about them at this moment. But bottom line, nobody ever says to me, Pam, I should have come home sooner. That was really boring. Everybody says, oh, Pam, I should have listened to you and gone for longer. I have to go back. If you're thinking this is going to be your once-in-a-lifetime experience, please make it worthwhile. Do a 7 or 8 day land plus the 7-day cruise tour, and you will not be sorry. So let's move back to cruises only. That's where we're going to focus right now. And there's several kinds. Let's talk about round trip voyages from Seattle. There's 2 different voyages being offered in 2026. The first is the Inside Passage with Glacier Bay, and that's going to be on Royal Princess. Now, the Glacier Bay cruise is what I would say must do. I think everyone should see Glacier Bay in their lifetime. And only 2 ships per day are allowed into Glacier Bay by the National Park Service. Princess has a lot of allotments for that. And so all of their cruises that are Inside Passage with Glacier Bay are going to go into Glacier Bay unless there's some kind of strange weather that keeps them out. It happens occasionally, but not often. The other Glacier Bay offering is the Northbound Southbound voyage of the glaciers, and we'll talk about those in a moment. So if you're thinking about round trip out of Seattle, my first choice recommendation is going to be to take the Inside Passage with Glacier Bay, and you're going to have a spectacular time. In general, that itinerary is going to include Juneau, Ketchikan, and Skagway, as well as a short stop in Victoria. And I just got back from one a few weeks ago. It was wonderful. I highly recommend this as an option for people with younger children. Maybe 10, 11, 12 is a prime age to take kids to Alaska. Princess has a wonderful junior ranger program. My grandchildren absolutely loved it, and Alaska is just spectacular. So this is a really good option because you only have to fly to Seattle, and with kids that's a little bit easier than flying all the way to the interior of Alaska. So that's why I would recommend it. I think any Princess cruise to Alaska is wonderful for families and multi-generational families, but Seattle does make the flights easier. So that is a recommendation from me. Now, the second option out of Seattle this year is an Inside Passage that does not include Glacier Bay, but instead goes to Endicott Arm and Dawes Glacier. Now, Dawes Glacier and Endicott Arm are a fjord, so think mountains narrowing down until you come to the end where Dawes Glacier is spectacular to see at the end of the fjord. It's a beautiful trip, and in 2026, Princess's newest ship that's not even built yet, it's being built right now, but their newest ship, the Star, is going to be doing that routing. If you want an amazing ship with all the bells and whistles, brand new, this is the trip to take. Now, I just said you really should go to Glacier Bay instead of Endicott Arm. So let's talk about how to overcome the issues with Endicott Arm, which is beautiful, but it does have some different issues to deal with. And let me explain that. Because of the bigger ships, they are not always able to go all the way into the fjord, especially early season when there's a lot of ice. So if you're going to do this trip, you want to choose a time that's a little bit later in the summer to increase your chances that the fjord is actually going to be open for the ship to get all the way down. The other thing you can do is there is a small ship excursion where they take a small group of people. It's usually only one or maybe two boats, so there's not a lot of opportunity, but it is well worth every dollar you would spend. You get on a smaller boat and you go way down deep into the fjord and get up to about half a mile from the glacier and spend significant time there, as well as time coming out of the fjord to meet the ship again. It's a beautiful trip and I highly recommend it if you would like to see the Star Princess and experience the newest amazing shows, meals, dinners, nightlife, performances. The Star Princess is going to be really amazing, and I'm excited she's coming. But just plan for, again, plan for success, and look at getting on her a little bit later in the season to make the fjord more navigable. I would like to add that there is an opportunity to sail round trip from Vancouver on Emerald Princess for the entire season. They would be 7-day round trip cruises. At the beginning of the season, they go to Glacier Bay and also at the very end. But in between, they're all going to be Endicott Arm and Dawes Glacier. So be sure and check your itinerary first. And then if it's what you like, that's a great option. Let me talk about some special round trip tours that are going to happen in 2026 that I think are worth pointing out. They're one-time cruises that are really magnificent. The first one is going to be an Inside Passage round trip from Vancouver. Now, this is more unusual, and going out of Vancouver is very special. So you would do this round trip from Vancouver. It's going to be on Emerald Princess, which is one of my favorite princess ships, and it's going to be on May 8th. It's 11 days, and what's really cool about that is it goes to Sitka, Glacier Bay, Skagway, Juneau, Icy Strait Point, Hubbard Glacier, Ketchikan, and then back to Vancouver. That is a magnificent cruise, and I would highly recommend it if you're looking for something in the spring that's a round trip and a little bit longer than the 7 days. That's beautiful. Okay, let's talk about two more that I think are amazing. This one is round trip from Los Angeles, and we have so many people that love to sail out of Los Angeles. Los Angeles is back in 2026, September 14. Again, one shot. And these are going to fill really fast, folks. So if you're interested in them, now is the time to book them. The Los Angeles cruise is 16 days, and it's going to go to Juneau, Skagway, Glacier Bay, Icy Strait Point, Sitka, Ketchikan, Victoria, and back to Los Angeles. Again, an amazing itinerary with some wonderful ports. If you want that, book it really soon. It is going to sell out. And this one is just like a dream. This is a dream. This is a round trip from San Francisco, and it's going to be 20 days. It's going to Ketchikan, Endicott Arm and Dawes Glacier, Haines, Juneau, Sitka, Glacier Bay, Hubbard Glacier, Valdez, Anchorage, from Seward. So you would get to go into Seward instead of coming into Whittier, College Fjord, Icy Strait Point, Skagway, and Prince Rupert, BC. Oh my goodness, 20 days of magic. If you want to do that one, it's going to be on June 12th on Ruby Princess. And again, these are going to sell out. These are one-shot cruises, and they're amazing. So keep that in mind as well. I'd like to also point out that there are round trips throughout the season from San Francisco. San Francisco is a great port for people to fly into if you've never been to San Francisco. And for people who live in California in the Bay Area, it's a great jump off because you don't even have to fly. And those in 2026 are going to be on Ruby Princess. They're 10 days. Watch the itineraries because they switch back and forth. Some of them have Ketchikan, Juneau, Skagway. Some of them switch out Ketchikan for Icy Strait Point or maybe Sitka. And so you need to pay close attention to your itineraries as well as your dates to make sure you're getting what you want. Now let's talk a little bit about northbound and southbound cruises, which are called Voyage of the Glaciers. These are wonderful 7-day cruises that either start in Vancouver and go to Whittier and on up into Anchorage, or they start in Anchorage, go out of the port in Whittier and end up in Vancouver. Why would you want to choose these? Well, first of all, they have wonderful itineraries. Most of them go to Hubbard Glacier, which is called the Galloping Glacier. It's called the Galloping Glacier because it's actually growing. While some of the other glaciers are shrinking, Hubbard Glacier is growing. And what that means is that she has calving on a regular basis where huge chunks of ice make a major gunshot sound. It's so cool. You hear the big pop and then you watch the ice fall into the ocean. I love going to Hubbard Glacier. It's huge, it's beautiful, and seeing a calving is just an amazing experience. So on the southbound Voyage of the Glaciers, you will have consistently Hubbard Glacier and then Glacier Bay, followed by Skagway, Juneau, Ketchikan, and into Vancouver. If you're doing the northbound, then some of them are going to go into Glacier Bay and Hubbard. Some of them are going to do Glacier Bay and the fjords, so going to Dawes Glacier instead. So you want to watch your itineraries. I always say choose your itinerary first and then choose your ship, because the itinerary makes more difference than the ship does. Once you choose your itinerary, then consider which ship is best for you. Let's talk a minute about which ships are going to be doing northbound and southbound. In 2026, Coral Princess is going to be back, a much loved smaller ship, along with Island Princess, who is her sister ship. Island Princess has had a little bit of a remake, so her promenade deck does not go all the way around the ship anymore like Coral Princess, but other than that, they're almost identical ships. One other difference between the two ships is for those that love the International Cafe. Coral has the International Cafe and Island does not. So those are really the major differences, is the promenade deck and the International Cafe. Other than that, you wouldn't really know the difference between the two ships. They're both beautiful, they're both smaller. They were both built to go through the original Panama Canal, so they're narrower, and they seem to be able to get a little bit closer to the glaciers because of their size. And so I love them for that northbound, southbound option. Others going northbound, southbound are the Grand, which is a medium-sized ship. And then finally, Discovery Princess, which is one of the newer ships, a larger ship than the other three. Now, how do you choose? Well, I already told you a little bit about Coral and Island. Grand, in addition to Coral and Island, are able to navigate through the narrower passages of the Canadian Inside Passage, as well as the U.S. Inside Passage. So if seeing the Canadian Inside Passage is important to you, then choose one of those three ships, Coral, Island, or Grand. Discovery is a newer ship, more bells and whistles. She is beautiful. I was just on her a few weeks ago. She is larger, and because of the type of propulsion system that she is not able to go through the Canadian portion of the Inside Passage. So she goes around that and then ducks into the U.S. Inside Passage. That's the biggest difference. So if you want a newer ship with more bells and whistles, and it doesn't matter to you that you don't go through that one section of the Canadian Inside Passage, then Discovery is a great option. If the Canadian Inside Passage is important to you, then choose one of the three smaller ships that will be able to navigate that portion as well. And it is very beautiful. So those are the biggest differences. Choose your itinerary first, then choose your ship. There's one other option I want to talk about right now as far as cruises only. A lot of people like to spend 14 days seeing Alaska. Why not? It's gorgeous. And so the Northbound Southbound has been connected into a single cruise, and it's called the Voyage of the Glaciers Grand Adventure. So you would start either in Anchorage, Whittier, or you would start in Vancouver, and you would go all the way up and all the way back, or the other way around, and stop at all of the ports, some of them twice, so you get to spend more time there and do more of the activities that people are always like, what do I choose because I don't have enough time. This gives you enough time. Now let me tell you a little travel agent secret. I recommend that you find a travel agent who is very good at Alaska. There are so many moving parts to Alaska, and this is one of those things that I like to do. Instead of booking my clients on a round trip voyage of the glacier, I prefer to book it as 2 back-to-backs. Set it up so you still have the same cabin, but this way, if there's a couple of advantages. One, if you have a plus package, you would then get 2 casual meals in each direction instead of just 2 for the voyage. If you have the premier package, you would get 2 specialty dinners in each direction instead of just 2 for the voyage. In addition, if you happen to have any onboard credit, you have the potential of having it in both directions and not just for the whole voyage. And the final reason that I like to do that is because they're separated out, and if the price drops on one or the other, you can have advantage of using Princess's new best price guarantee, which says that if your cruise goes down in price, then you can get 120% of onboard credit, that's free spending money, for the difference in the cruise. So if your cruise dropped by $100, you would get $120 in onboard credit instead of nothing. I mean, that's awesome. I like that guarantee. And I really absolutely can tell you that the chances of that happening on a grand voyage that's round trip are very low. The chances of that happening on an individual northbound or southbound are still not super great because so many people are going to Alaska, but your chances are higher that that could happen. Now I'd like to tell you a little bit about selecting some different parts of the Alaska cruise that this would pertain to any of the voyages we've just talked about. The first is cabin types. How do I choose my cabin? Well, there's several things to take into account. The first thing is, do you want a beautiful suite? Do you want a mini suite that is going to give you much more room, a much bigger bathroom, is going to fit more comfortably if you have a third person in the cabin, or do you want a balcony? Now, I didn't mention ocean view and inside cabins. Of course, they have them. Anywhere but Alaska, I say it doesn't matter. But I will tell you, in Alaska, Alaska is so incredible. You have mountains and the potential for wildlife on both sides of you going through the inside passage. In Glacier Bay, to be able to go out on your balcony and see the majesty of the glaciers and take that all in. In Alaska, you want to know, oh my goodness, the sunset is incredible. I want to take pictures right now. I don't want to take time to figure this out and run up on deck. There's whales outside right now, and to be able to photograph them immediately can be everything. If you're inside in an inside cabin, you don't know when that spectacular moment is happening. And even in an ocean view cabin, I can guarantee you with sea spray, it is hard to take a good picture out of those windows. It's just the reality of being on the ocean. So the only place in the world I say, please get a balcony is Alaska. It's worth the extra money. Now, location has a lot to do with the price of the cabin. More ideal locations are a little higher priced than less ideal. So what does that mean? Well, in general, the least expensive cabins are forward and high on the ship. Why? Because that gets the most motion. If you happen to hit a bank of fog, you're going to have fog horns in your ears all night long, right there beside you. And that's not ideal. From there, we can go back to aft and lower, or midship and lower. Midship and lower, midship cabins are always going to be your most expensive cabins. But they're also in the best location on the ship for moving back and forth. They're in the best position on the ship for motion. After that, aft is better for motion than forward. So all of those things go into making a decision about where you're going to have your cabin. And again, a well-informed Alaska and Princess travel agent can help you a lot in determining which side is best for your itinerary, which forward or middle or aft area is best for you. Do you want an aft-facing cabin that you can look out and see the wake on the whole trip? What is it that you want to experience is, again, so important to choosing in Alaska. And it's not like going to the Caribbean where all you see is ocean around you, and then you pull into an island that looks pretty much like every other island that you go to. This is very, very different. And so you want to maximize, again, your experience with getting the right situation for your expectations. I would like to talk for just a couple minutes about Princess pricing, because Princess pricing also plays into how to choose. Princess has bundled some of the most important items for your cruise into pricing bundles that will save you significant money over pricing all of those individual things separately, adding them on separately. And so they have two levels. The first is Plus. The meat of the package looks like this. You're going to get your crew gratuities paid, prepaid. If you choose to give something extra to someone that did something extra for you, you can, but it is not needed nor required. So your gratuities are in the package. Wi-Fi. Most of us use Wi-Fi on a daily basis these days. And if you're going to want to connect to Facebook or send pictures home or check emails, you're going to want to have Wi-Fi on the ship. The other piece of the package that is meat is the drink package. Now, the drink package is not just about alcoholic drinks. It's really important to note that if you're going to drink specialty coffees, which my husband loves, if you're going to have sodas, which I go through a lot of Diet Coke in a week or more on a cruise, if you're going to want any kind of non-alcoholic drinks, bottled water, you name it, those are included in the package. And so you want to consider Plus package. If you're going to have any of those items, it's worth it. The packages really do pay for themselves. And the best part of it is that you finish the cruise and you don't have a bunch of extra charges that you didn't expect or that are more than you thought they would be, because you didn't pay close attention to how those were going to be charged. In addition, in the Premier package, you get some things like all the photos that they take. You get the entire, all of the pictures that they took, and you can download them onto your phone before you get off the ship. And you can also get 3 hard copy, actually printed out photos to take home with you of your choice. So I really like that. For the other thing about the Premier package is that instead of just one Wi-Fi per person, you get 4 at a time. So for me, I'm always working when I'm cruising, and I need to be able to use both my phone and my computer at the same time. So that would be an upgrade for me from the Plus package to a higher level of Wi-Fi. And again, in figuring that all out, by the time I add everything together, enjoy specialty dinners, and enjoy unlimited casual dinners, enjoy having all the Wi-Fi I need and that my husband needs, and not needing to upgrade anything. The Premier comes out ahead for me every single time. So for me, it's now Premier. It used to be Plus. It's now Premier, because I've run the numbers and I keep finding that I come out better. And I walk off the ship a happy camper, and I was able to have my sodas. I can occasionally have a alcoholic or non-alcoholic drink at one of the bars if I want. And all of that is included. So please consider Plus or Premier you really do come out better unless you do not use Wi-Fi and you do not drink anything except brewed coffee, lemonade, or water while you're on the ship. Enough about packages. Let's move on real quick to insurance. A lot of people say, why do I need to pay for insurance? And let me explain something to you about going to Alaska. In many of the ports, there is minimal medical care. For instance, in some, all there is a nurse practitioner in a clinic. Now that's great for some basic needs, but should you fall down a hill hiking or even slip going down a gangway and somehow break your leg, the closest major hospital may be in Canada. And if you have to be flown to Canada and then have medical care in Canada, it is the very rare U.S. insurance that will cover that. It happens all the time. People don't go on vacation expecting to get sick or hurt, but it happens. And if it happens and you find yourself in Canada being treated, you're going to have an incredible bill. So I say, don't leave home without it. What's your backup plan if you get hurt and you don't have insurance? Insurance is something that none of us want to pay for, but if I need it, I want to have it. So just like insuring my home and insuring my car, I insure my trip. It's not just about trip interruption. It's about having medical insurance when I'm potentially out of the country. The other thing is that when you're on the ship, there is medical care. It's pretty darn good medical care, but you're in international waters. And so that's also considered out of the country. And if you have insurance that's going to cover it, you're going to be okay. If you don't have insurance and you get sick or injured on the ship, again, is your insurance going to pay for it? So please check on whatever insurance that you have, maybe through a credit card, maybe through your own personal insurance, and find out, do you have adequate coverage? Maybe you do. Often I've had clients that fell back on their whatever they had on their credit card and it was not enough. So be careful, check it out, and I highly recommend insurance. Princess has 2 levels of insurance. I'm not going to talk about them, but they do have them. In addition, if you're working with a travel agent, there are third-party insurances that I recommend to people that they can take instead of the Princess insurance. What's the best? I don't know. It's different for every person. So get your options, do some research. If you're buying insurance from a third-party company, you need to buy it within 14 to 21 days of the deposit on your ship in order to have pre-existing conditions covered. So if you have any pre-existing conditions, this is something you need to look into right away. Talk to your travel agent and get that nailed down so that you have adequate coverage if anything should happen. Coming up next, I'll be providing a YouTube video talking about cruise tours on Princess in Alaska. And that is the best of Alaska, spending time in the interior of Alaska as well as your northbound or southbound cruise. So that'll be coming up. My name is Pam Cheek. I am loving the journey and I hope to see you soon. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Bye.